Hi and welcome to Full Speed Racing. We're here today at Snetterton for round 5 of the F3 Cup. The cars have just come back in from quite an exciting qualifying with 2 red flags and just 1 second between the top 5 drivers. Jacopo Sebastiani, the current championship leader, is sitting in pole position with University of Wolverhampton Racing Shane Kelly sitting in second. So it's looking like quite a tight race for race 1 of the weekend.
Thanks, Tara. The cars for round 12 of the 2017 F3 Cup are lining up on the grid. Jacopo Sebastiani on pole position with Shane Kelly alongside. Row 2 sees Robbie Watts lined up alongside Stuart Wiltshire, with row 3 having Tony Bishop and the reigning champion George Lyne. Gino Ussi and Cian Carey on row number 4. And it's Mark Harrison and Olivier Cyril on row number 5, making his debut in the championship this weekend. The red lights are about to come on the gantry. The white and light blue car of Jacopo Sebastiani, championship leader, on pole position. A good start from pole by Jacopo Sebastiani. A poor start by the look of things from Shane Kelly, who's been swamped rather as everybody else is able to side their way through. It's going to be Jacopo Sebastiani that leads, Robbie Watts in second place, and Shane Kelly down to something like 6th, one would imagine, with a poor start for the University of Wolverhampton supported car. So up towards the braking area for Wilson they go for the first time. Jacopo Sebastiani very late on the brakes, totally misses the apex, and that allows Robbie Watts to almost draw himself alongside midway through the corner. But the London-based Italian is able to reassert himself back into the lead of the race as they go through the cement dust that's been put down there following an engine failure in one of the previous races. And that has caught out Tony Bishop by the look of things through the left-hander at Palmer. Tony Bishop, who started 5th on the grid, has tumbled to the very tail end of the order in the infield section of the 300. Round through the left-hander at Agostini. You can see the squabbles that are going on mid-pack at this stage. But out front and looking to try and build an advantage is going to be Jacopo Sebastiani, who has been Mr. Consistency so far in this championship season. Hasn't claimed a race victory, but he has been on the podium in, I think, all bar 1 round so far this year. Such has been his consistency. This is the squabble now between Gino Ussi, who is fighting away with the Irishman Cian Carey. Those two just working their way out of Williams and onto the Bentley Straight, whilst at the bottom of the Bentley Straight, in towards the braking area for Brundle and Nelson, come the lead trio. Jacopo Sebastiani leads the race. Second position is going to be Robbie Watts. Third place is that man there. That's Stuart Wiltshire in third position. So those three have broken away rather from the 4th place car. And as they turn their way through Coreham and up towards the conclusion of the first lap of the race, onto the brakes, in towards the left-hander at Murray's they'll go. Stuart Wiltshire in the podium places in the early stages of this one. Qualified 4th with the poor start for Shane Kelly. He's up to 3rd as they sprint their way over the start-finish line and chalk lap number 1 into the book. So up towards the right-hander at Ritchie's they'll go. Robbie Watts looking very racy in second place, trying to hang on to the coattails of race leader and, of course, championship leader Jacopo Sebastiani. It was at this point of the circuit on the first lap with cold tyres where Sebastiani ran wide. Nice and neat and tidy that time through the right-hander at Wilson. And then it's slightly uphill in towards the fast left-hander at Palmer. There goes Robbie Watts in second place. He's got to attack and sort of defend at the same time. The top 3 looking fairly equidistantly spread. So Sebastiani from Watts, from Stuart Wiltshire, then look into the distance, and that's where you can see the recovering car of what looks like Shane Kelly, who's there now in 4th place. So the poor start from him, dropping him down through the order. He's now got to try and close in on this trio ahead if at all he can. Terribly hard to try and do so. The white car with its light blue and day glow flashes to it. Race leaders go through Oggies, and that, by the look of things, is a spin for the car that was in second position. Robbie Watts tried to pressurise Jacopo Sebastiani into a mistake, and by the look of things may well have made one himself. So Shane Kelly goes through. He's now up to 3rd. George Lyne, the reigning champion, has gone through as well. The red and white car, which means that the man from Thundersley in Essex, Robbie Watts, is now going to be down into something like 5th position, and you can see that Gino Ussi in the lead of the race now, following that spin for Robbie Watts, is not under any pressure at all. So there go the lead 4. There is Robbie Watts in 5th position. It looks as though it's Gino Ussi that's behind him in 6th place. There's another good fight going on towards the tail end of the field by the look of things. That will involve Richard Purcell busy squabbling away at the wheel of the yellow car, trying to get right up onto terms with the car that lay ahead. So the leaders now heading round through what is the bomb hole and up towards Coreham. Robbie Watts looking to try and recover following his spin. Here's Cian Carey. He's going to be down just outside of the top 6 in 7th place at the moment, the Irishman, who was lying coming into this weekend 3rd in the championship standings. Hadn't entered the previous couple of rounds at Silverstone, so it's good to see him back in the championship. He's having a great little fight at this stage where he needs to try and defend from the car that sits directly behind him, and that's the number 96 car in the hands of Oliver Cyril, who really is putting Cian Carey under pressure in his debut in the championship this weekend here at Snetterton in Norfolk. Onto the brakes in towards what is the right-hander at Wilson goes Cian Carey, followed very shortly thereafter by the white and red number 96 car in the hands of Olivia Cyril. As the pack of cars then flash their way through the left-hander at Palmer, having to attack and watch his mirrors at the same time is Oliver Cyril, because Mark Harrison is not too far behind him either at the wheel of what is a largely black car, but it's got some silver and yellow flashes to it. Dave Gillett is there towards the tail end of the field, and then we've also got, I think that's Baptiste Leonard, who's making his debut in the championship this weekend, fighting away with the yellow and red car. That will be Richard Purcell. So they work their way out of the infield section at Agostini up towards the left-hand kink, very fast left-hand kink at Hamilton, and then from there they flick right at Williams and onto the long Bentley straight that brings them down towards the braking area for the complex. Mark Harrison at the wheel of his Magic Motorsport Dallara looking to try and close in on those ahead. Race leading 3 there. We're already now down towards the bottom section of the circuit with George Line still there in 4th place. Nobody quite close enough though by the look of things to pick up a full slipstream of anybody else heading down the Bentley Straight. So the order still remains the same at this stage as they then exit Nelson and start to head along the short straight up towards the flat out bomb hole corner, which really hooks you into the apex of it, that right hand corner, and then from there it's the never-ending right-hander at Coram that brings you up to the brake area for the final left-hander at Murray's. And once they've completed that, that will complete another 2.9689 mile lap here at Snetterton on the 300 circuit. The battle for the lead of the race beginning to close up. Stuart Wiltshire has got the fire in his belly at this stage and is looking to try and mount a challenge to Jacopo Sebastiani. Also, by the look of things, Cian Carey, the Irishman returning to the championship after his break at Silverstone, still under pressure from the number 96 car of Oliver Cyril. So there's good little fights going on way down through the order, not least of which is a battle at the sharp end, which is beginning to close up for my money. Jacopo Sebastiani, though, still sufficiently far up the road so that he can concentrate out through the visor, looking forwards rather than having to look in his mirrors to see where Stuart Wiltshire is, because ideally Wiltshire needs to close into the tune of what, another 4, you could argue maybe half a dozen car lengths before he's really putting Jacopo Sebastiani under pressure. And equally as much, Stuart Wiltshire needs to watch his mirrors, because the charging Shane Kelly, after his poor start, up to 3rd now in the podium places, looks as though he is starting to close in as well. So the top 3 beginning to bunch up. The battle isn't formed as yet, but certainly the gaps are going the right way as far as both Stuart Wiltshire and the 3rd place car of Shane Kelly is concerned. The recovery drive for Tony Bishop continues. Of course, he had a spin at this corner at Palmer on lap number 1, so he's having to carve his way up through the order, but that's a bit of a difficult task in what is a very competitive field here at Snetterton again this weekend. To the bottom of the Bentley Straight goes what is Cian Carey, still there in 7th place, still with Oliver Cyril not too far behind. And then just behind them is where we see the next of the runners, which is Mark Harrison. But our race leader in the meantime is just threading his way up towards the start-finish line to chalk another lap into the book for Jacopo Sebastiani. And it is another lap on which he continues to lead and has this advantage between himself and Stuart Wiltshire. There's Shane Kelly in 3rd place. Here's George Line, the reigning champion, in 4th place. Robbie Watts, after his spin, goes through in 5th place and is beginning to close in to get himself back up towards the lead 4. So pushing hard is the man from Essex. As much pushing hard is the man from Wolverhampton, who sits there in 3rd place now, Shane Kelly, trying to close in on Stuart Wiltshire. The gap is coming down. You can see the 2 cars in the same shot there as they turn their way through the left-hander at Palmer, but time is running out for Shane Kelly to try and catch and then, of course, get past Stuart Wiltshire. And if he wants to try and claim victory number 4 of the season, well, then he needs to try and close the gap on Jacopo Sebastiani, who seems to have things very much under control at this stage. There's the lead 3 heading up towards Hamilton, with George Line not too far away, so the gaps aren't that big, but in identical cars in reality, with very similar performances and equally as skilled drivers. Catching is a task in itself, then getting past is something entirely different, because of course the closer you get to the car ahead, the more it affects the aerodynamics of your car and therefore affects the grip as well. So you really need to work terribly hard and pick your opportune moment, because there might not be many of them. Down the Bentley Straight comes Jacopo Sebastiani. Stuart Wiltshire just too far back to try and get a tow as they come down the main straight. So Sebastiani turns his way through Nelson, starts to head up towards the right-hander at the bomb hole. Stuart Wiltshire still not too far away. We have seen Stuart claim 3rd places so far this year, but he hasn't had a 2nd, so this would be, even if he stays where he is, in 2nd place, his best result of the season so far. And for Jacopo Sebastiani, Mr. Consistency, he's had loads of 2nds, he's had several 3rds, he's had a couple of 4ths, but he's not had a race victory as yet so far this season. So that's another lap completed. Over the start-finish line he comes yet again. Stuart Wiltshire that little bit closer again this time, so the gap is coming down. It's being chipped away at by Stuart Wiltshire, who has got himself now within touching distance of Jacopo Sebastiani. Any snatch break or missed apex, and he's going to be there. And by the look of things, Stuart Wiltshire might just give himself half an opportunity here. Looked very slightly ragged round through Wilson, but has now gathered his thoughts again through Palmer and starting to head down the short straight that brings him up towards the left-hander at Agostini. The top three pretty close to each other. George Line just that little bit further back in fourth position. So onto the brakes, down a gear, in towards the left-hander. And from there it's picking up the throttle as quickly as you possibly can and heading up towards Hamilton, which is a very fast left-hand kink before you then onto the brakes and in towards the right-hander as Oggies yet again. Where Stuart Wiltshire is going in pursuit of Jacopo Sebastiani, our race leader. He turns his way out of Oggies up towards what is now the right-hander at Williams that brings them onto the Bentley straight. And this is the best opportunity really for Stuart Wiltshire. If he can get close enough, which he's not at the moment, he will pick up the toe and the hole in the air from the car ahead, and he's just not close enough this time, so there's no opportunity to close the gap on Jacopo Sebastiani, who seems to have things very much under his control at this stage. Nice and neat and tidy go the lead three out of Brundle and Nelson. With Stuart Wiltshire closing, but the closer he gets, the more his car will be affected by the aerodynamics of the race leader Jacopo Sebastiani, and therefore you then start to overwork the tyres. On what is a warm day at Snetterton, you start to affect the air going into the radiators, which raises the engine temperature, so it's a difficult thing. And well, Stuart Wiltshire, if he can close, he then just needs to really work out where to pick his moment, because there might not be that many opportunities for him, and he also needs to consider, if he tries to attempt a move and it doesn't come off, that Shane Kelly's not too far away, neither is George Line or that car there, Robbie Watts, following his spin. So the top five have opened up quite a sizable gap between themselves and Gino Ussi, who sits there in 6th place. It's going to be Cian Carey in 7th place, Oliver Cyril in 8th place, and Mark Harrison, who completes the top 9 by the look of things, and Dave Gillette will be in 10th position. Race leader though turning his way out of Palmer, down the kink towards what is the braking area for Agostini, and looks as though, if anything, the gap between first and second has come out a little bit, but without question the number 11 car of Shane Kelly has closed the gap on Stuart Wiltshire a shade. Not by huge amounts, but just visually to the eye it looks as though the gaps are changing in a minute way, and that might be then the opportunity for Shane Kelly to perhaps close in on Stuart Wiltshire. And if that happens and those two start to squabble, it lets Jacopo Sebastiani back off again and will allow him to pull away. So down the Bentley straight yet again they will go. Here is Tony Bishop. He is still trying to charge his way up through the order following his spin early on, and that looks like a front puncher actually for Tony Bishop. I don't think that was a mistake from Tony. It looked as though the front right was a little bit flat as he came down the start-finish line. For Tony Bishop, and he's spun at Ritchie's corner. He might be able to limp the car back to the pits, but by the time they put a tyre on it, all the damage will be done in reality to his aspirations to grab a fistful of points at the 12th round of the championship. Meantime, Jacopo Sebastiani is hugely keen to try and hang on to this lead of the race. The gaps look as though they're coming down a shade still. So out of Murray's, on towards the start-finish line they'll go. The top three still together with, by the look of things, Tony Bishop now out of the race. So there will be yellow flags up at the first corner Ritchie's, and you can see those yellow flags on the gantry there. So no overtaking to the bottom part of the Senna straight, the start-finish line here at Snetterton. By the look of things, the top three aren't close enough anyway so as to try and attack. So onto the brakes and in towards the right-hander at Wilson goes Jacopo Sebastiani, followed by Stuart Wiltshire. Shane Kelly, an ever-present danger there in 3rd position as they then sprint their way up towards Palmer. And if they start to slow each other up, don't rule out the fact that George Line, champion from last year, who has found defence of his title very, very difficult indeed, is sitting there in 4th position. George has not even been on the podium as yet so far this season in the defence of the title. He's had a few 4th places, he's had 5th, he's had 6th, but we've not seen the reigning champion on the podium. Just go to show how competitive F3 Cup is nowadays. So another lap. We are midway through Oggies, up towards what is then Williams. Jacopo Sebastiani still with the daylight between himself and Stuart Wiltshire. That is important again come the Bentley straight, which is what they're heading on to now. So Stuart Wiltshire might close a little bit, but again, he's just not picking up the toe from the car ahead. He's just that little bit too far back. As Jacopo Sebastiani still works tirelessly hard to try and maintain this slender advantage that he's got between himself and Stuart Wiltshire in 2nd place. 3rd place Shane Kelly though looks as though he might just have dropped a little bit further back over the course of this lap. Not much, but I suspect something like another car length further adrift is he from the leading pair, who are now just turning their way round through Coram up towards the left-hander at Murray's, and Jacopo Sebastiani is going to chalk another lap into the book. He's led every lap so far and is now going to be leading as they head onto what should be the last lap of the race. This is the fight for 9th and 10th position. The Magic Motorsport car number 28 in the hands of Mark Harrison, under pressure from Dave Gillette's blue and yellow machine that sits behind. Both of these drivers have been regulars in the 2017 championship, and they're having a super little squabble towards the tail end of the field as they go over the start-finish line. So they've got another 3 miles to sort out who's going to finish in 9th and who's going to finish in 10th position, because the leaders are now on their last lap of the race, turning their way up towards Agostini. Jacopo Sebastiani seems to have controlled this race beautifully well, other than maybe a very slight mistake running wide at the first corner on cold tyres, which we can certainly let him off for. He has driven meticulously over the course of the last 8.5 laps and is now heading towards potentially his first victory of the season. For Stuart Wiltshire, second place would still represent his best result of the season so far. The driver that comes into this weekend lying 5th in the championship, outscoring the likes of Shane Kelly and Cian Carey and Robbie Watt, so that is going to do his championship aspirations no harm at all. But it's all about Jacopo Sebastiani, who, best part of 12 months since his last win in F3 Cup, is going to claim surely a first victory of the season here. All he needs to do is stay neat and tidy through the bomb hole. I think Stuart Wiltshire has settled for second because he's just dropped that little bit further back on this last lap of the race. So Jacopo Sebastiani safely through Coram, neat and tidy onto the brakes, in towards the left-hander at Murray's, and accelerating his way towards the checkered flag here at Snetterton, and a first victory of the season in the 2017 F3 Cup. Jacopo Sebastiani claims the first win of the weekend and his first win of the season. Stuart Wiltshire comes through in a season's best second position, and a hard-charging Shane Kelly, after the problems at the start, will come through and finish in third position. So 3 very happy-looking drivers will head towards the podium very shortly here at Snetterton for what has been a great first race of 3 of the weekend. Confirmation then, Jacopo Sebastiani claims the win from Stuart Wiltshire in second and Shane Kelly in third. George Lyne was 4th, ahead of Robbie Watts in 5th, with Gino Ussi in 6th place. Then it was Cian Carey, Oliver Cyril, Mark Harrison and Dave Gillette that complete the top 10. So 3 very happy drivers heading towards the podium at Snetterton. Shane Kelly receives his 3rd place trophy. The 2nd place trophy will go the way of a delighted Stuart Wiltshire, one of the real characters of F3 Cup. But the top step of the podium and his first win of the year goes the way of Jacopo Sebastiani. Let's hear from our winners on the podium.
First win of the year, championship leader. That was pretty close, I thought.
I got there in the end. It's been long in the waiting.
Don't sweat.
And
don't sweat,
I finally made it to get it all together. So pole and fastest lap and win is all good. All good.
You like this circuit then?
I love this circuit. But actually I love all the British circuits. So it's just not only this one. It's today things happen. They worked out.
Just like old times. Normally I come out on top, but on this occasion Jacko got the better of me. So.
And do you think you can beat him tomorrow?
Of course, yeah. It's a foregone conclusion. A little bit of tinkering overnight, and he's history.
A poor start, I think. Any issues there?
Yeah, no, me. I think a better start than a few before. But yeah, we got away, and there's a bit of a scramble at the first corner. I think someone hit Tony, and then I saw that, and he moved, and I went to the outside, so I had to stay on the outside, try and stay out of trouble there, and that let a few through, and just kept pushing, and Robbie had it on this out, but closed down to Stuart, and got near to him, but I couldn't really do a lot. We were sort of slightly hampered around sort of Palmer with the wheel down, and where you could sort of maybe run it through and get some pace. We were stuck a little bit there, but yeah, P3 is still good points. We need to keep close to Jacopo, and yeah, push for next time.